to make clear to the kids or to the adults that their way of speaking is as beautiful as our way of speaking.
Again, to use the phrase in my work, white supremacist capitalist patriarchy, because I wanted to have some language that would actually remind us continually of the interlocking systems of domination.
You need to begin with a movement, which is what Black Power and the Civil Rights Movement was. Then, immediately within it, you are going to get those people whose differences are not being articulated, which is, right, us. So
the Friends of the Indians said that massacres were not very nice, and also they were more expensive. So they advocated not physical genocide, but cultural genocide.
That work with regard to gender, and I began to collect examples from intersex, from the naming of sex hormones, from all of the things that I cover in Sexing the Body.
Sitting around as an incredibly deep and thoughtful 14-year-old girl in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, saying, "What would it take for Black people to be free?" No, it took me quite some time.
Case where I was looking at Black women who were being discriminated against, not just as Black people, not just as women, but as Black women.
Had built their comfort, their prosperity and civilization mainly on the free land and materials and cheap labor, partly furnished by their own working class, but mainly by colored people overseas whom they dominated by their colonial empires.
Every single day I have to worry that people believe falsehoods about me and my community, and that those people are going to come and target me. And I think that's the devastating part.
for instance, I got into a great deal of trouble, I've written about this, by making fun of Christopher Columbus. Christopher Columbus was a disagreeable man, never mind Columbus Day. Personally, he was a disagreeable man.
I had a very unique experience. I was the first black student to go to a white school in Tennessee.
So when we are experiencing trauma of this kind, whether it is because it affected us personally or because we see our community that's devastated in our towns and our country.
I think self-care actually means is having and integrating a practice of putting yourself in front in a world that doesn't encourage us to be alive, to stay alive, to take care of ourselves.
And so not only do these racist characterizations hide the systemic nature of black inequality, but they also contribute to an atmosphere that regards black people as a menace, as criminals, and generally as a problem population that must be patrolled and policed.
You know, you can end the subordination of some people over others and end up in as bad a system as the system that, you know, subordinated them. In this case, you don't get out of the colony.
Do I think if you had more faculty from poor and working class backgrounds, that it would change much of the research agenda found in, for example, African American studies programs? I actually do.
And learn to speak openly about sexuality in a positive way, but some of that also, of course, brings up trauma, because we have a lot of trauma because sex has been used as a weapon by the colonizer.
You know, you think that you're going to be dealing with someone on an equal level or something, or you just expect people to be at least polite to you.
This idea that black people have had no impact on history is one of the foundational ideas of white supremacy.
Rather, we see the abolishing of grades as a way to open space for radically reconfiguring education.
If it violates your human rights, that's the system you work to deconstruct. Our existence was dependent upon our ability to resist and survive the violence of capitalism, heteropatriarchy, white supremacy, and expansive dispossession.
We can power our lives without poisoning anyone. Justice and reparations for the communities that have already suffered the most on the old model.
Intellectuals who are women of color have transformed the very nature of feminism. And the hallmark of feminism today is what we call intersectionality.
And if you were like literally taken outside of the world during that time and then plopped back into the world now today, what your adjustment would be like. I think we have to be mindful of that and think about that. Not just for Centoya, but for so many people who've served long sentences in prison.